Okay, wonderful. So, I saw a lot of videos about Bridgerton season 3 and the entire pollen fiasco, and people kind of giving their 2 cents on it. And originally, I wasn't going to post anything until the season was done because I'm a big believer in the quality of work isn't finite until it's finished, right? I don't think it's fair to judge something based on how good it is if you're not even done. So what if it like gets good in the last like quarter of the story, right? I'm not a sports fan, but there's probably like a saying there about something something baseball, something something final quarter, something something ball in net, something something high school musical. I don't know. But what matters is I wasn't going to make a video about it. But then I saw other people doing it, and I was like, well, if they can be stupid online, I can be too. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Today I'm going to be talking about part one of season three, the first, what, four, however many episodes Netflix released. And I'm going to be rewriting it because I think it is not good so far, or at least not good in what it's trying to achieve. So a few things first and foremost. Number one, I am not a hardcore pollen shipper. Childhood friendships do not appeal to me just because of like the nature of childhood friend relationships. I find them to be very boring and simple. But that's not a bad thing. It's just not my taste. So, if it ever seems like there's a time when it's like, wow, she really doesn't really give a shit, huh? It's because I don't. So that's an important detail. And number two, I am not going to be talking about any of the other plot lines. We're going to focus entirely on Pollen in this video. If for some reason I decide to make another one to talk about the other plot lines, then I'll do so. But as of right now, Pollen is our main priority. So today we're going to be playing Skeleton. If you don't know what Skeleton is, that's perfect. That's because it is a made-up game. I made it for myself. A little known fact about me is I am an English major, specifically a creative writing English major. So if you're ever watching this video and you're like, she's dumb as fuck, what is she talking about? What authority does she have? I'm going to school for it. So I have a little bit of authority, but only a little bit. So Skeleton is a game that I made for myself to kind of let me stretch my writing bones anytime I wanted to do a project. And basically how it works is the name comes from the idea of a skeleton with a body on top. So to play this game, and I implore you all to do this as well if you'd like to, you take a show, movie, story, whatever, and you take off all the meat and bone and fat and everything except for the skeleton, right? So that means all the most important character beats and story moments have to stay, and you have to end up at the same place, but everything in between can be changed, right? It's kind of the idea like, oh, everyone has the same skeleton underneath, even though that's a myth. So, example, right? Let's say we were doctoring season 2 of Bridgerton. No, okay, wait, re record. Okay, so example. Let's say we were going to play Skeleton with the Spider Man story. As many stories have done when it comes to reenacting and remaking Spider Man, Uncle Ben still would have to die. Peter would still have to be bitten by the radioactive spider. He has so many villains. It's so hard to pick which one is the villain of the week. Let's say it's a Prowler or something. Prowler still has to come out to be someone close to him, whatever, whoop-de-woo, whatever have you. Let's say you do Superman, same idea. Clark still has to come down to Earth and be left behind by his parents, still has to be found by the older couple, the Kents, still has to grow up to become Superman. But everything in between can be changed as long as you still hit those same story beats. The reason Skeleton is so fun from a writing perspective, especially when you're like trying to study writing, is it not only gives you a chance to work on your own writing, but it gives you a chance to see why creators do what they do, right? And you can try to infer meaning from why they made certain decisions, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think it's very fun. So again, I implore you all to play it if you haven't, which I hope not because I invented it. Okay, that was a very long intro, but let's go ahead and get into it. For this story, Pollen's story, the things that I kind of deem as like the skeleton of the story, is this. So Pollen has to, and we're going to include some season 2 in here as well. So Eloise and Penelope have to stop being friends. That has to happen. They can't be friends at the beginning of the season. They have to stop being friends. Eloise has to know that Penny is Whistledown. Okay, also has to happen by the start of the season. Colin has to be in France, and he has to have also have said his very mean comments at the end of season 1, or I'm sorry, at the end of season 2, where he's like, "Oh, I would never date, or I would never marry Penelope Fellertington." Uh, such a stupid name. He still has to say that, and Penny still has to overhear it. So that's kind of like the setup to the season period. Like all that still happens. Let's just say, for sake of argument, happens in the exact same way. Like nothing needs to really change there. In the actual season, however, Penny has to have her glow up. She has to get the dukedom, or whoever the fuck she's trying to marry, to want to be with her. She has to try to pursue marriage. Colin has to kiss her. They need to have their kiss still. They need to have the big carriage scene. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's all the stuff I remember of like the important stuff. I don't remember much else. Everything else just felt like a means to an end to kind of getting to those scenes, which is not a good thing. But I guess in theory, everything is a means to an end for anything. So maybe that comment didn't really make much sense. Whatever, it's going in the video. Digressing. So those are the beats we have to hit. So let's start off with the basics. Number 1. One of my biggest problems with Pollen as a ship, other than the childhood friend thing, is that I am not at all convinced that Colin is in love with Penelope. Now, I can't speak for you all. Maybe you adored it. If TikTok has anything to say about it, and Reddit, then, Bridgerton season 3 has been flawless and immaculate so far, and everyone's seeing the romance. And you know what? Good for them. But I don't see it. And this is not an actor problem. This is very much like a script problem. These actors, they don't have the chemistry that like Kate and Anthony had last season. Their actors like couldn't stop looking at each other. That was very scary. They were electrifying. But these two have chemistry. But their chemistry is very platonic, and the show does not do anything to push that forward, in my opinion. And I think my greater problem, like I said, I do not believe that Colin is into Penny at all. I call her Penny, by the way. Apologies. I believe with my whole heart that Penelope is madly in love with Colin. I believe she has been in love with Colin since the day that the show started. I believe her entire childhood she's been in love with Colin. And I believe even after the hurtful things she's heard, she's still in love with him, and she's willing to put everything in jeopardy for it. That is not hard for me to believe. Nothing Penny did this season in regards to Colin was surprising to me. That seemed all pretty par for the course. Colin, on the other hand, and I say this in the most polite way possible, seemed like he was having like a manic episode for the entirety of season 3 so far. When I say that, I don't mean that he was, being crazy and running around and like nothing like that. It's not that serious. But the speed and the sharp degree of turn that he does because of one kiss is merely unbelievable. And it does not sell me as an audience member on his affection for her. I know in romance bookland, we're supposed to just believe that they kissed and he realized his feelings for her because he had never seen her as a woman, but then they embraced each other and they kissed and they like swapped spit, and it was very sexy and whatever. Like that's awesome. And I can believe that from, a writer's point of view. I can see why they did it and I can see what they were going for, but I was not convinced of it. The intent did not change the effect, right? So that's the biggest problem, I think, more than anything. I am not convinced that Colin is in love with Penn. And the reason I say that is because by the end of the season, I was asking myself, what does he like about her, right? And I know what you're thinking, viewer. If you've watched the show, you're going to say, oh, you're so fucking stupid. He loves that she is kind and she is smart and witty and she cares about him and she listens to him, and she's the only person in the entire world who cares about the things he goes through and has always been there for him. And to that, I say, I don't disagree with you, but I don't think he thinks that. I think that we think that because we have had a chance to see behind the curtain and see Penelope in her most desperate and wanting moments. You know, we've got to see how she looks at him when he's not looking, and how she feels about him, and how she's told away at letters at night, you know, in the middle of gossiping about other bitches in the ton. And I believe that she feels that way. And I believe that we feel that he feels that she feels that way. But I do not believe that he feels that way about her, because I don't think he's cognizant of her like that yet. I don't think the show convinced me of that. So that's going to be like problem numero uno that we need to solve. We need to convince everyone that Colin is in love with her. So that's the first thing we're going to be tackling. Number two, and this is a personal gripe. Maybe other people won't agree, but this isn't their YouTube channel, so I don't really give a shit. But personal gripe number two, there is not enough of a choice in this season when it comes between Colin and the Duke. What is this motherfucker's name? Actually, give me a second. Let me... Bridgerton season 3 Duke of Hastings. Nope, that's not his name. 3. What the fuck? Does he have a name? Wait. It's not Harry. Lord Debling? Is that his name? Let's see. Is it? I've been saying it very wrong this whole time. Shit. Oh, it is. It is Lord Debling. Okay. My bad, guys. Okay. Well, okay. So, back to it. So problem number two, Lord Debling and Colin, there's not enough of a real choice between them. And I know what you're thinking when I say that. Like, no, there is a choice. Like, she has to choose between, you know, comfort or love. And I raise you this. If she marries Colin, will she not be comfortable? Exactly. So we're going to have to go through that. So Colin and Debling need more contrast between the two of them to actually give her a choice, because as stands, there's not enough of a choice, and it doesn't even make sense for her to be entertaining this other man once Colin starts to show affection for her. And I guess in theory she doesn't. I guess like the moment Colin like fingers her in the car, she calms down considerably. She's like, "Oh yes, I'll marry you, Colin." And they have like 1,000 redheaded babies or something. But let's still change that, because I think we can definitely make that more of a question, because I think her internal struggle throughout the show, or rather this season, I guess I should say, is, oh, do I want a man who is comfortable and kind and like amicable, but he won't love me? Like, I want a love match, because I've seen love matches and I want that for myself. So we're going to have to add that. So that's going to be thing number 2. And then thing number 3 is going to be the Cressida Penelope fight. Well, it's not a fight. Women don't fight back in this time. Even though I would beat the brakes off that bitch for talking to Debling when I was talking to him. But digressing. I think we need to completely rework that. In fact, I want to take the whole damn thing out. I think it's completely unnecessary. And it doesn't really serve much of a purpose other than like kind of antagonizing Penny. And I think she has enough going on. I don't think she needs more of that. I think there's a better way to implement it. So we'll get to that part. So that's good. That's 3 things. If I think of more, I'll say them, but I haven't thought of them yet. And we'll get into it. So if there's an author's note suddenly and it's like, "Hey guys, I thought of another thing coming up soon," then you know why. Okay, well, that's been a fun introduction. Let's go ahead and get into it. Bye. Woo. This is going to be part 1 of the general problem section, where I just kind of bitch about my problems. And we're starting off with the biggest one of all. I think if we change nothing else, this is the one thing that must be changed. And everything else is going to be like, in favor of this, like to strengthen this. But Colin doesn't like Penny. Okay? I'm sorry. Don't yell at me. It's true. He doesn't like that girl. Or at the very least, he doesn't like her the way he needs to like her. I want you to just for a second sit and think with me and remember what happened in the span of 4 episodes, right? Episode 1. Colin gets back from France. Everything's normal. He finds out very quickly his sister and Penelope are no longer friends. By the end of episode 1, top of episode 2, he offers to help Penelope get a husband because Penelope wants a husband all of a sudden. Episode 2 to 3, he is helping her become seductive, quote unquote, to men and helping her get a suitor. This works, and he finally helps her find someone. But right before things start to get serious, Penny comes to him in tears and begs him to kiss her one time, just so she can know what it's like to be kissed and to be romanced, even if only for a moment. He does it. It's not a big deal. He then proceeds to, for the remaining episodes, if we've even hit episode 3 and 4, I don't think we even have, but for the remaining episodes, he proceeds to not only dream about her, but his eyes follow her wherever she goes. He is unable to go a moment without thinking about her. He writes about her constantly. He suddenly cannot even allow the thought of her with another man. He stops the entire dance to talk to her. He follows her outside. He goes to the dance just to see her. He chases her to her wagon or cab or carousel or whatever. I don't know, the word's escaping me. And then he proceeds to finger bang her for the 10 minutes it takes them to get to their destination. Probably comes in his own pants. And then begs her to marry him. Now, I don't know about you, dear reader, but that is a lot to happen in 4 episodes. That's why I said this doesn't seem like love. This seems like mania. This seems like Colin came back and he's having a bit of a nervous breakdown. And now he's attaching himself to the one constant he's always had, which is interesting. But I don't think that's what they want. So this is not a good thing. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, as much as I would love to retcon the previous show episodes, we cannot do that. We can only stick within the framework of this season. We're going to get to the plot changing stuff later in the video. So right now we're just going to focus on like how to make Colin come off like he actually likes Penny, which is very difficult because it doesn't seem like Colin does like Penny. And I don't know where that stems from. I don't know if it's a character thing or, a chemistry thing or what. I think one of the first problems is that Colin as a character is just... Now, I can't speak for everyone. Some people love him. Some people love Colin. He's not my favorite Bridgerton, not by a long shot. Anthony is incredibly engaging. But I think Colin's problem is that he seems very vague and his character lacks direction in a way that Penelope doesn't. Penelope is very well put together from a character standpoint. She has her ups, she has her downs, she has things she's struggling with, and she has things that she is quite confident with, even if they're good or bad or indifferent. And then you have Colin, and what does Colin do? Like, what do we know Colin for? Well, Colin likes to travel, okay? And he loves his family, sure. And he's witty and funny. Yeah, got it. I think all the guys are, honestly, other than Anthony. And he writes. Yeah, okay, just learned that. And he loves prostitutes? ? Now, I don't know about you guys. I didn't get anything else from that. I didn't really... There's stuff you can glean from him, obviously, from his interactions with Maria. And there's stuff you can glean from him with his interactions with Penelope. And how he moves throughout the world and his selfish demeanor. But I don't know if that's intentional. I don't think we've had time to really get to know Colin. And that's a bigger problem with this season. I'm sorry. I don't care about anyone else but Paulin. Okay? Francesca's cute. Her and her little boyfriend are cute. I think they're sweet. I love the rep. I love the fact that they're having fun. Look at the bad bitch I pulled by being autistic, and look at the hot man I pulled by being autistic. I love it. But Everyone else, we don't need you here. Okay, Violet, I'm happy for you, girl. Move. Okay, Danbury, sorry that's weird. It's your brother. Move. The boxing family, I skipped every single scene with those people. I do not care at all. That was such a waste of time. Cressida and Eloise, skipped. Like it's like there's too many things going on. We need to focus on Colin and Penelope. Another reason I feel like I don't agree or believe that Colin actually likes Penelope. See, childhood best friendships, and I'm gonna kind of go on my soapbox about why I don't like them, but I'll try to keep it to a minimum because I'm not here to bash on the ship trope inherently. Childhood best friendships are really beginner friendly relationships in theory because a lot of the hard work is just done for you. A lot of the foundation is put down naturally in the shorthand of they grew up together. That says a lot. You don't really have to say anything more than that because we understand, right? So, because you have put that down, the audience is primed to expect and find romance in places where there are not. And that's the problem with this show. It makes the audience do a lot of the heavy lifting when we should not have to do that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating for an audience where, oh, I shouldn't have to do any of the hard work and the curtains aren't always blue, sometimes they're just red and da 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 da. Like I'm an English major. I go to college for this shit. Trust me. I love looking too deep into things. If this video is not proof of that. But I think, there's a difference between I need the show to hold my hand and there's nothing here and I'm just inferring out of nothing, right? Like I'm trying to make a meal, but there's no ingredients in my kitchen, but I have the recipe book in front of me and people are telling me, well, if you just like are good at cooking, then you'll be able to do something with this, but there's nothing to do anything with. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just not that good of a cook, clearly. So this is a very long way to say that Colin and Penny need more time together to show why they are friends. I'll be talking about this more in the part where I actually do like a 4-episode breakdown of what I would want to happen. But I would want to dedicate, of the 4 episodes we have, one of them would be a full flashback episode. Like no other character, it would be nothing but flashback. In fact, I would even go so far as to say it would be the first episode of the season. The first episode would start when Penelope and Colin first meet. It would be from Colin's point of view and, well, maybe not Colin's point of view, but it would be from one of their point of views and maybe back and forth. And it would follow their relationship from when they met to now, right? And then the season would start in earnest. And that would give us a chance to kind of see what Penny sees for the first time. Because I don't know about you, I have not been convinced of why she finds this man lovable or attractive in the first place. It feels very much like, oh, I'm a young girl and my best friend's brother is hot. Like Victoria Justice made a song about it. That's how ubiquitous this concept is, that it was in a show. But that's not surprising to me. So I want to see their childhood. I want time to see like why she likes him in the first place. And I want time to see why he doesn't like her. Right. I think that I don't need a lot of work to understand why he doesn't like her. I've just been doing a lot of the mental load and assuming, okay, well, Colin has viewed Penelope as like sister. She's in the sister category very securely because she's Eloise's friend, and he would not make a move on Eloise's friend. So he never viewed Penelope as a woman, and only recently has he started viewing her as a woman because she is starting to stand out and put herself forth not only as a wallflower or as Eloise Bridgerton's plus one, but as Penelope Featherington and a bachelorette, and someone in search of suitors and for a man. And now he's suddenly cognizant of her and realizing, oh, she's always been here. Oh, she's always been wonderful. So this first episode, we're doing a lot of heavy lifting. Another thing that would be important, I want this entire season, the romance should mainly be from Colin's point of view. We did not get enough Colin's point of view. And I know that sounds backwards considering I just started this whole thing with, oh, he sounds like he's like losing his fucking mind because every time we see him, he's like freaking the fuck out. And I stand by that. But we know why Penny is in love with Colin. Or we don't, but we know that Penny is in love with Colin, and we don't need any more groveling from her. We don't need long, forlorn stares. We don't need her looking through his notebook and holding the pages tenderly as she feels it crumple under her palm. We don't need her getting goose pimples as he looks at her and passes by her in the hallway. We don't need any of that, okay? Stand up. Stand up, okay? We know. We know you want to fuck him, girl. We know. We don't need any more. What we do need is, why does Colin like her? So from now on, most of the scenes are going to be from Colin's point of view. Colin should be the reader, I'm sorry, the watcher, viewer, audience surrogate to understand Penelope, right? That's another thing I have with this show. The audience does not have a good surrogate most times. So for anyone who doesn't write or know screenwriting or anything, when you say audience surrogate or reader surrogate, what that means, that's usually the placeholder character who is the consumer or audience's members' way of understanding the world around them. Usually in a story, this will be someone who does not understand a lot about what's going on around them, so they need to be introduced to that world because they are in the place of what the audience would be. Like a Harry Potter. There you go. Perfect example. I don't know why I didn't think about that further. I fucking hate J.K. Rowling, that devil. Anyway, Harry Potter. Perfect audience surrogate. Why is he a perfect one? He comes from a world separate from the one that we are about to be introduced to, and because of that, he can be a vehicle of exposition, and things can be explained to him without breaking the understanding of the world. So instead of you explaining everything about the Harry Potter universe to Dumbledore, I don't know, someone who knows everything, I presume he knows everything, I've never read it, you explain it to the kid who knows nothing because he's coming from the outside in, right? We go in as well, and he is our guide because he also doesn't know anything. Think of the reader surrogate as the kid in class who asks questions that everyone else is thinking, so you don't have to feel stupid. That's what it is. If you feel stupid, the writing did not do a good job because now you feel like the odd one out. You should never feel like the stupid one. You should feel like the information is being given to you naturally. It's not being spoon-fed to you. Good, great. Colin should be the viewer, reader, whatever surrogate for seeing Penelope blossom, her garden coming into fruition, right? What I mean by this is that Penelope apparently gets sexier and more interesting to the people around her through her glow up. And we see it as the audience because we think her actor is gorgeous, because her actress is gorgeous. She is a beautiful woman. I don't know her name, but she is absolutely gorgeous. But you don't really feel it, like there's that moment when she comes down the steps and she's still awkward, which is good. I like that even though she's pretty now and like sexy, I guess, she's not lovable or wanted by men just because she's like difficult to be around because she's awkward. That's good. That's a good thing. But that doesn't change the fact that that scene could do a lot if over time you saw Colin falling in love with her and seeing her step out more as a woman as the audience was doing it. Because we have an understanding of Penny that he does not have. He does not know she is whistled down. He does not know the abuse she goes through at home, or at least not the extent of it. He does not know what's going on with her and Eloise and like the friendship they have and, how she's been sidelined in that friendship. He does not know the traumas and tribulations and trials she goes through as a woman in the ton, right? So from the point of view of a man to the woman, we see him not only fall in love, but we see how the general public would react to her. An example of this that I think has failed spectacularly, and the fact that I know it fails because so many people are arguing about it online, is, let me ask you this, listener. When Colin comes back from France, or wherever the fuck he was, and he's getting with all these girls, and he's seen as a rake, should he be seen as failing miserably and clearly trying to be something he's not and cringy? Or should he be seen as a Casanova, charming, sexual man that is just bringing it in, like he's beating the bitches back with a stick? I'm serious. Please, feel free to pause the video and think about it. Because there are two conflicting thoughts. On one hand, it's safe to say, okay, well, Penelope sees him as being a tryhard. Penelope sees that that's not the real him. He's being something he isn't, and he is failing, and it is cringy to watch. But that's not what the piece is saying. The text and the way people react in the text, the way women flock after him, the way everyone's talking about him, the way his friends think that he is a catch and they want to know all his stories because they know he has some. The way the prostitutes, and I know they're paid, but the way they just fawn over themselves when he's coming in. The world around him seems to agree that he is a Casanova. But because we're from Penelope's point of view, we seem to think that he's failing. But who's the correct one? Now, in theory, both are correct. But in practice, I would say the show failed because we don't have a clear understanding of which is which. And you can disagree with that, but, I don't care. It's my video. So we're going to have it stick to one or the other. So being from Colin's point of view, we're definitely going to lean into the more of like Casanova thing. And he's going to be very sexy or whatever. So he's been a rake for the season. It's a bitch. And now he's back. And Penny's seeing him and he's hot now. And we follow Colin as he not only starts to find himself in his family, in regards to his family, and like make a space for himself, but he also finds himself with Penny and finds himself finally noticing her. You remember that revelation in season 2 when Eloise, hears Penny say something and really looks at her for the first time and like hears what she's saying in the gossip, and it's like, I didn't know you were like that, Penny, as if she like had never really heard her before, which is an admission of guilt in of itself. Colin needs to have one of those moments because he hasn't ever really heard her before. He's quite dismissive of her, and I don't know if that's coming from a place of hurt or, intentional, like, oh, Penny, whatever, like, you're so sweet, but I don't really care. Or if it's just, again, like, he's just a kind of a selfish, immature person, doesn't get it. I don't think it really matters right now. It does definitely matter from a character writing standpoint. But what does matter is that he doesn't see her. And through this kind of metamorphosis where we're seeing her come out of her shell, and the Ton is seeing that, and Colin is seeing that, we're seeing him see her for the first time and noticing things about her he hasn't noticed before. One of the beauties of childhood relationships, and it's not a beauty that I can behold, but it's a beauty that I can recognize, is there is a give and take when it comes to the idea of knowing someone for so long that you almost become blind to them, right? So to explain what I mean here, one of the reasons I don't like childhood ships, even though I keep saying I'm not going to get into it, I'm just going to get into it. One of the reasons I don't find them compelling is because there is a degree of self that someone who has known you for your entire life will never be able to let go of, just by the nature of because they've known you too long. So any new version of you is going to be unfamiliar and something that they just cannot grasp or hold on to because it doesn't hold weight the way your previous self did. So think a perfect example. A parent has known their child as a literal child for so long that it is hard to give up aspects of that childhood or that adolescence, even though you've gone well into adulthood, right? How many of you have talked to your parents and mom and dad are still bringing up things that you liked when you were like 14 and you're well into like your 20s, your 30s, whatever, and they're still like, oh, remember when you liked this show, or, you used to love this band so much, even though you've long since outgrown that. Why do they do that? Well, it's because that's the you they've known the longest. They were with that version of you for decades, maybe multiple decades, maybe just one, whatever. But the version of you that's now here, the one that doesn't particularly like that thing anymore, is not privy to them, whether it be because of distance or, just estrangement, or maybe it's just because you didn't tell them, it doesn't really make a difference. It's a small detail, but they don't know that, or they're not cognizant of that because that version of you they knew is the only one they can recognize comfortably. And my problem with childhood friendships, and it's only a problem because this is something I deem as unromantic, and it's not inherent, I guess, whatever, is there's confines to being known so thoroughly by someone who has seen you through everything you went through adolescence, and seeing you when you were young and coming into yourself is such a confined space to be in. And the thought of having a lover that is unable to see me as I grow and change because they are stuck by nature of what we are as what I am, and constantly regarding me in comparison to what I used to be, sounds like a very isolating relationship to be in. Now, of course, this is kind of like worst case scenario, right? Like, oh, the abusive partner that only knew me as one thing and cannot look outside of this. And there's more extreme versions of this. But on a grand scale, even the people with the best intentions are always going to have those memories, even if you want to forget them, right? Or even if you're trying to move on from what you used to be. Especially with a case like Penelope, she's trying so hard to be more than what she used to be, whether that be in regard to Whistledown or just her own anxieties and her fear for the future, or, her current state in the ton or what have you. And having Colin, someone who is so attached to the previous memory of what she was, or maybe he isn't because I didn't really know her, would be constricting, and I feel like it would be akin to like a noose around the neck that's not tight and you're not hanging yet, but it's there and it's reminding you of like where you could be or something to that effect. Maybe that's too specific, but digressing. This is all to say that knowing someone intimately, and let's say for sake of argument, even though I don't believe this, that Colin knows Penelope incredibly intimately, they're very close. He knows her intrinsically, she knows him intrinsically. There's that push and pull of Penelope wanting to redefine herself and Colin not knowing what to do with that because he has only seen her defined by the definition she was. She was Penelope Featherington. And now this new womanly figure is coming out, and it's hard to deal with that. Now, in this version of the story and the original version, if we're going to be honest, I don't think Colin knows Penelope that well at all. In fact, I think he knows very little about her outside of her function to him, which isn't a bad thing, I guess, but it undermines the point. But we're going to run with it. So he doesn't know her very well. They're not that close. It's kind of like a one-way street, not that Penny knows that. Or maybe she does. Maybe she is cognizant. She doesn't care. But this gives ample opportunity for him to have kind of the best of both worlds of childhood friends and strangers from lovers. So he knows her enough to know when she's kind of acting out of character, but doesn't know her enough to know her tells. So this allows for him to really look at her for the first time and really see the things she's doing. I want him to notice everything about her and to start taking inventory of the things she has going on, the things she wears, how she talks, what amuses her, what makes her laugh, what doesn't make her laugh, what does she look at when she enters a room, what does she smell like, whoop-de-whoop-de-woo. I want scenes where he's seeing her get mad about something stupid, like they go out for food and maybe the guy wants a few pence more, or maybe the ladies in line just will not be quiet, and Penny is just like, oh, this is so annoying, and she's like bitching about something small, and he's never noticed that she does stuff like that. Or the moment when he notices her hands are spilt with ink, like stuff like that. Noticing the way her hair is curled differently, and not just like that the wig is gone or like the big ornaments, but like it's on a different side of her face, and he's never seen the mole on her cheek, or he's never seen her use like blush or charcoal on her eyes the way she did today. Or, oh, she smells different. Usually she smells like chamomile and oranges, and today she smells like lavender and like roses or something, and which are actually conflicting scents. Ignore that. I love perfume. Ignore that. um but we should see him getting seduced because his advice should be faulty, because he is putting on this appearance of a rake. He's not actually a rake, apparently, and we should see that because his advice is only good for him. And it just so happens that Lord whatever is also weird enough to be into it, but his advice is working like a charm. It's like he is falling for her bad, and that's because the hard work is already done. Penny already understands him, and Penny already knows him, and he should have to chase after her now that he's seeing her in this new light as a woman and not just his little sister's best friend. I think we're not doing him the diligence of allowing him the chance to chase after her, because that's what all the fun is about, like seeing the chase of this guy realizing, oh, I need her, but she doesn't want me anymore, so I have to prove to her that I'm a good man, and her and him like changing and turning a new leaf. But then the question has to be asked, okay, well, if he's so great, why would she ever choose Lord What's His Face? And you know what, viewer? I am so glad you asked. Let's go to thing two. And why would she ever choose Lord whatever the fuck? When I say that Penny needs to make a choice, what I mean by that is when story writing, there's this concept known as conflict. And conflict drives a story further. Now, conflict can be external, which is usually like other people or the world against a character, or they can be internal, which is usually like a character versus a character, or they can be interpersonal, which is a character versus another character that is not themselves, or interpersonal. Like, there's a lot of different versions of it. And I think a lot of the conflict in this show is external. And I don't like that, because I think intrapersonal conflict between people and internal conflict between oneself is much more interesting, because it's not easy to run away from that. Like, Cressida being a problem, which we'll get to later, is boring, because you could just beat the brakes off her and throw her in the river somewhere, and then she won't be a problem anymore. But we can't do that, whoop-de-woo, whatever, so on to the next thing. Can you tell I don't like that girl? Anyway. Okay, so the actual point of this section. So, a problem I have with the fact that there's no choice is that, realistically, let's say for sake of argument, if this season were to continue and she were to continue pursuing Lord Devlin, and Devlin didn't find out that she was being fingered mercilessly by Colin as well, right? Which very well might happen. At the time of writing this show is not out yet. So there's a very real chance that might happen, even though it seems like he was completely done with her. Like, let's say we rewrite that and he is not done with her. He doesn't say no to her proposal, or rather he does propose to her and she says yes or something to that effect, right? And she has to make a decision. Once Colin has made his intentions clear, Devlin has no chance. Like, he has no way to fight this, because in every sense he is more important. Colin, that is. So, Colin's family are the Bridgertons. They are, from what I gather of the show, the most influential family in the Ton, second only to the Danbury estate, of which there are no heirs or children, or at least none that we care about, and then the royal family. The Bridgertons are incredibly high up on the ladder. The Bridgertons have not only amazing social capital, they have nothing but money. They have so much money, it is like not funny, actually. It is a problem. They have enough money to where Eloise, the sickening girl, can just lounge around and pretend to be a feminist and to pretend to stand on her ideals, and she can lean into the spinster lifestyle if she so chooses, because there's nothing forcing her. She does not want for money, and that's a plot point in the season, and good on them for saying that. But that could be pushed more. Digressing, that's how rich they are. So they have not only social capital, and they have not only money, but then, as if that is not enough, there is familiarity there, which I think is a bad thing coming up very soon. I'll explain that. But there's familiarity there. So let's assume the Eloise fallout did not happen. Penny has known this family functionally her entire life, and she's quite close with them. She's close enough to where if she joined the family, it would not be a massive surprise to anyone, other than the fact that it's Penny and Colin. But she knows everyone there, so it's not like she's like leaving her family to go to this unknown family she's never known before. So there's no reason why you would ever choose someone you don't know, who has less money and less social capital, when you could be with a Bridgerton. That just doesn't make sense. So we're gonna give her something to really think about. So here's the setup. Right? I don't really know the politics of the Regency era at this time. From what I've gathered from online discourse, Bridgerton takes place in like a hypothetical universe where fashion is just like fucked, and everyone dresses like they're in Hunger Games Part 3, Katniss Never Dies or something. So we're just going to say, for reference, let's just say France, England, Spain, big three. Right, that's fair. And then those other little European countries. Germany, we can put them in the mix too. Whatever. Yeah, sure. So all those like European nowhere places. Here's the setup. Okay. So you're gonna have two men of this season that are kind of like the choices to choose between. You have Colin, which is Colin. There's no need to really add anything there. And then you have Lord Debling. And Lord Debling is going to be, instead of a lord, he's going to be a very high dukedom. And he's going to be coming from a different country, okay? So he's going to be a dukedom from, like, France, Spain, Germany, one of those, like, kind of, like, sister countries that are really nearby and isn't hard to get to. And, they're in close relation to Britain. And he is going to have a house of more acclaim, more social capital, and more money than the Bridgertons. But it is in a different country. So no one in the Ton understands or knows who this guy is, outside of just obviously like oh, Lord Debling is incredibly rich and incredibly well established over, in Britain or in Spain with the Spaniards or whatever it may be, right? Like, he's very important, just not here. So what that does is that immediately puts a difference between, oh, do I want to be with Colin, who has all this money, or do I want to be with Lord Debling, that has less money, right? Like, no. Lord Debling has more power, more acclaim, more money. He's just not here. That also creates a distance between Penny and the Ton. See, Penny's entire thing this season is that she wants to get away from her fuck ass family, which is fair. Her family sucks. Not as much as they could. I think, honestly, this is something I might say later, but just for context, I also think that the family is not abusive enough. That's not me, like, wanting Penny to be, like, beaten to half to death or starved or anything. I'm not asking for that. But the degree of work she's putting in to get away from her family feels a bit much for what boils down to taunts and favoritism from mom. And don't get me wrong, like, I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, shit like that builds up, and if you do it all constantly, starts to eat away at you. But I think if we made it a bit more extreme and a bit more obvious, then that could help a lot with, like, the Cinderella effect of, like, oh yeah, I can see why she wants to get out of here, right? Digressing though, I'm getting off track. So the distance would be another thing in Debling's favor. So not only does he have money, not only does he have property, not only will Penny be taken care of for the rest of her natural life with this guy, he's far away from her family. She will never have to see them again if she doesn't want to. And she is so sick of her sisters and her mother, and that concept is incredibly enticing, especially compared to Colin, where even if the Bridgertons were to, go to their estate in the country, they're still really close to her family. Like, she will never be completely out of the grasp of her mother, just like physically, right? Like the physical distance between them will never not be there with Colin. And I think that's something that should weigh on her, especially because she's making all this money with Whistledown. And she's like, I just want to be away from my mother. Like, I need to get out of this house. That's the whole reason she wants to get married. Not even out of love anymore. It's desperation. She's like, I need to get out of here or I'm going to, like, do something drastic. You know what I mean? So that's another thing in his favor. Another thing to help with the choice. So Debling is, dukedom, viscount, whatever word, phrase, whoop-de-woo. And he has lots of money and he's very well off. He also is not tapped into Whistledown, and I think that's an important thing. See, Penny, and this is something I don't understand about the show, and this is kind of like a character thing I don't understand. And I guess love is the answer, like, oh, I love him, but follow me. Personally, I don't really understand why Penny is so comfortable with the idea of marrying into a family with someone who functionally has a one-hit kill nuke of blackmail against her, right? Obviously, Eloise has not used the fact that she knows who Whistledown is for any nefarious purpose yet. She has not yet used that for a nefarious purpose, but she could at any moment. And as far as Penny understands it, the only reason Eloise has not fucked with her yet or put her on blast for everyone to see is because she insisted, if you stay away from me and you keep our lives separate, I won't mess with you, okay? I just want to move on. And Penny understands that, and that's why they've been keeping the distance. And we don't want to talk about it. We just, aren't friends anymore. I think that this should go into her decision-making as well. I don't understand why Penny would even want to marry into a family with someone who has that much against her. Especially because, and this is I'd love to see in the comments if anyone even watches this and cares, but I'd love to see what you all think. What do you think the general consensus is when it comes to the Queen and Whistledown? Because I've seen some people online who say, like, oh, the Queen finds it entertaining. They kind of have like a cat and mouse. It's not really that serious, though. It's not really a big deal. She wouldn't kill her or anything. They would work in cahoots or something. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But in the text, as far as I understand it, the Queen really like scared the shit out of Eloise about being whistled down, or not being whistled down rather, and like trying to find Whistledown. Like she scared her pretty damn badly. And I know that social catastrophe means a lot in this world, especially Regency era, white people, whatever. Um, and I understand that, and I get it, but I think the the consequences of being found out of Whistledown should be more dire. So in this rewrite, we're gonna say that Whistledown not only will bring social ruin to her family, not only will it call into question everything they've ever said around Penny, not only will it just be like a total earth shattering affair, also the queen will have her, I don't know, like stripped of her title, for making a fool of her. The queen is a fickle woman. It was fun, but she doesn't like being made a fool of in her own kingdom. So she's like, okay, well, I'm not going to kill you because it wasn't that serious, but I'm going to strip you of your title, and you're going to have to move to either a different country or, into some kind of peasant province town. And to someone like Penny and to her family of women, that is kind of like certain death, right? So that's enough. That's close enough to, physical punishment as you're going to get. We can have her cut off her hands or something. That'd be pretty funny, I guess, but we won't do that. So that raises the stakes. So let's say the stakes are raised. Why would you want to marry into a family like that? I feel like that's an important question. Penny, you genuinely are terrified of her releasing this information. You're so scared you weren't willing to let anyone know that you were whistled down, and instead threw Eloise under the bus. Whether or not that was deserved, I'm not arguing today. Even though she ate that, I think Penny definitely ate that, and Eloise had that coming. But that's not really the question of the hour. The question of the hour is, why would you want to go back to a place where someone who could ruin you so easily is that just feels like a bad idea. You know what I'm saying? And I think Penny is too smart for that. I think she's too intelligent for that. I think Penny is too pragmatic. I think she thinks too much, and she's too intelligent to want to put her in that situation. So already we have reasons for why these two men each have pros and cons, right? So on Colin's side, the pro, the familiarity, she knows this family, she's comfortable with this family. Colin has showed his intentions, and there is possibly love there, right? Like, oh my God, I could really find love with him. Like, he has been love of my life for as long as I've known him, and I could marry him. I could be with the man of my dreams. But then you have this other guy, Debling, and he has money, and he has a claim, and he has property, and he is alone, and he will give me my peace and my quiet, and I won't be expected to perform in the way I will with this other family. And he has distance from the Ton, and distance from Whistledown, and distance from my family, and I can just escape and never think about them again if I don't want to. And I think that's freeing. I think that would be freeing for her. So that would be something to think about. So now you already have, okay, shit, like I really have to pick and choose between the two. And that is very cool. Another thing about Colin, to kind of, because Colin has a lot of pros, let's add some cons. Colin has functionally, as far as the show puts it, spent the last, I don't know, summer, let's say, doing nothing but gallivanting around France and fucking as many whores as he can get his hands on. And to that I say, congratulations, man. STDs are a doozy. But more than that, and his super chlamydia 2, the sequel, Electric Bungalow, I do think that there should be that promiscuity should make her uncomfortable. I think Penny should allow her to be uncomfortable and mad at him. He said some very hurtful things about her, and in a place and a time period where social capital is everything, it's a currency in of itself, telling other men, single men, oh, I would never be with Penelope Featherington, such a stupid name, I would never be with her, that's damning. That's incredibly damning. He could have ruined her chances of any kind of recourse or anything, and that's shitty of him to have done. So no, I think she should definitely be still very mad about that. And then on top of that, I think she shouldn't want to be with a guy who has been shown to be very fickle. Colin, I think this is a writing problem. I do not think this is like his character, but we're gonna lean into it and say it is character. Colin comes off as a very fickle man. He comes off as if he is immature and childish, and he's kind, but he's immature and unable to really think about things past himself. He's kind of selfish like that. And his entire world is himself. He is the center of his own world. He is the sun, he is the moon, he is the stars, right? And a natural causality of that, right, is that, oh, he doesn't think about how his actions affect other people really outside of maybe his family and his younger siblings. So Penny has seen him gallivanting around for the entire season and the season prior and the season before that when he was trying to get with Marina or whatever that bitch's name was. And Penny doesn't trust him. She's in love with him. She's always been in love with him. She's still in love with him deep down, but she doesn't trust that he is a loyal man anymore. She doesn't trust that he has any kind of sense of self, and she doesn't trust that he would be loyal to her or good to her. And I think that should weigh on her. Something I want to see more of, and again, this might happen, is Penny being mean. You have to have a certain kind of temperament to you and a thought process to be able to write the kind of shit she does in Whistle Down. And I think it's pretty milquetoast, but in the canon of the world, it's quite serious. And I think that should come out. I think the way she views Colin should reflect that. I don't think he should be allowed to be this promiscuous rake. And I don't even know why he's a rake in the first place. Does every fucking man need to be a rake? My God. Whores, a lot of them. Anyway, I don't think he should be allowed to just be like this open, blase type. And she have no opinion on that. I think she should be like, okay, I can accept that you're my friend and you can teach me how to seduce men because you presumably have been a man that has been seduced, but I do not trust you with my heart and affairs of the heart because you clearly do not have a steady hand when it comes to anything having to do with it. You are, fickle, and you are thin-skinned, and you lose interest quickly, and I don't have the luxury of being a cheap fling, right? Something that I wish the show would have pulled on more. Don't get me wrong, I know the mom's abusive, whatever. I don't think you can be raised under someone for your entire life and not pick up anything when they're constantly saying it. If Portia Featherington has said anything and instilled anything into her stupid children, it is that a woman has only as many rights as her husband will allow. So get a husband that will give you as much as you can get, right? Like you need to, she is like the Steel 7. What is that? Oh God, the TikTok girl with the sprinkle. She's that, but like 1,000 billion years before. Like it was cool. So Sierra 7 in the old days, if she was white and a redhead and named Portia. So I think Penny should be very cognizant of like that imbalance between them and trying to be like, oh, I need to get with a man with money. Even though she thinks she's above that. She thinks she's like, oh, my mom is so backwards. Like I want a love match. She cannot help that this has been ingrained in her. And she has grown up with this thought process for so long that she now subscribes to it even unknowingly. Like she does not understand. It's an unconscious thing, but she does. It's an unconscious bias. So she's like, okay, well, I don't want to be with a man that is so promiscuous. He might sleep with another woman when I'm not there. And then what happens, right? Like then I'm out a house, then I'm out. Or, I'm stuck in a loveless marriage. So now I'm out a loved marriage and I'm out comfort and I'm out peace in my home and I'm with the Bridgertons. Like it's like bam, 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 bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. Compared to, oh, if I go with Debling, then I'll only be out love. Or I'll only be out this, that, whatever, whoop-de-woo. And that should be something like the pro and con that she's weighing. Now, obviously, by the end of the season, she will have learned that, oh, he's only promiscuous because he didn't have you there or whatever it may be. That we'll work on that. But she doesn't know that yet. She does not currently know that when we start the season and kind of like when this conflict is really in the thick of things. So she doesn't understand what this could mean for her. So she's cautious. She has to be. This is her life in the balance. And I think that's another problem I have. She's treating this like this is a game of romance. This is your life, girl. This is your livelihood. You do not have the luxury of money that the Bridgertons have. You have the luxury of a feather in a hat, which is to say very little. It is thin and it is very light. It will fall out and you will be destitute. Or as destitute as you can be in this time period, I suppose, when you are able to afford the things you afford in the first place. But digressing, this just gives us the chance to have more conflict and more on Penelope's side of having to choose between the two men and having to make sense of, oh, what would be the best thing to pick, not only for my heart but for my well-being. And yeah, so that's cool. Okay, on to the next part, I guess. Whatever. I'm gonna say something controversial. I don't hate Cressida. I know it sounded like that earlier because I said that exact thing, but I don't hate her. In fact, I like her more than I like Eloise. I think Cressida's interesting. I think Cressida allows for a moment to give Eloise not only the clearance to find some sense, but the ability to see outside herself. She fails at both those things, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But she's good for that, and Cressida's fun. I don't know why she dresses like that, but then again, I guess Penny dressed weird too. So whatever, fuck it. But Cressida is unnecessary here. I know what Cressida's there for. Cressida is supposed to, in theory, give urgency to Penny's actions, right? The one guy that Penny wants to go for is being gone for or trying to be courted by another woman. She has to really like lock in and focus because this girl will fuck up all her plans because this is the only guy that wants her. So she can't let him go. Like she needs to really like make sure he gets this guy. And I get that, but I don't like it. I think it's just unnecessary. Throws a wrench in the plans. I think we can just get rid of her. I don't really have anything better to say. I don't really feel like the Cressida thing works. I could go like on a really long rant like I've already done for the other two sections and explain in depth why, Cressida kind of is like a failure and what it's trying to do, and it just muddles the water. And if you change the rest of everything else, you don't really need to add Cressida's plot line. But I don't want to, and I don't think it's that necessary. I think just saying I don't think she needs to be there is enough. So that's all I'm gonna say. I really don't think she needs to be there. I think Cressida works better as like a B plot with Eloise and Cressida. Eloise and Cressida to me should be mirrors to Colin and Penny. And that can be in like a shipping sense as well, or just in the sense that like Eloise needs to meet someone who is not as privileged as her. And Cressida is a good example of that because she wasn't listening to Penny, who also wasn't as privileged because Penny liked her too much to really get in her face about it. But Cressida doesn't like her as much, and Cressida is allowed to be honest with her in a way Penny wasn't. So Cressida should be allowed to use that. So, while Penny's learning to be more seductive and getting men of high caliber from different countries and different backgrounds, Cressida is still, she's almost on the brink of becoming a spinster. Like, she's been in the debutante for what, like 3 years now, just like Penny. So she's getting old, at least in regards to this, right? So things aren't looking up for her. And then you have Eloise who insists, oh, I know what you need to do. If you just read and get smarter, then things will go well for you. And that's not how it works. And I think that back and forth of how Colin is failing Penny because he's not preparing her for how men actually are, because he's really only preparing her for how he is, because he's selfish and a Bridgerton. He doesn't understand that like other guys want other things. And then Eloise not preparing oh my gosh, what is her name? I just forgot her name. Wow. Eloise not paying her friend Cressida. Eloise not preparing Cressida for anything because she's a Bridgerton and she is haughty and too stuck in her ways and thinking that she is above the feminine acts of courting and suitors in the town. Could be very fun, and it shows you kind of like the failings of the family and how when you're too close to the top you're unable to really relate to people below you even at your best attempt, and how they both have a lot of room to learn. And this gives Eloise a chance to see, oh, I actually wasn't that good of a friend to Penny and miss her more. And it also gives Colin a chance to see like, wow, I'm really no better than my sister. So I don't think we need to get rid of Cressida completely. I think she's fun, but I don't think that we need to keep her the whole time because it's not that serious. So yeah, no Cressida, or at least move her to the right a little bit. Okay, great. So on to the actual skeleton game. Time for the plot changes. This thing's about to get crazy, guys. So get your drinks, get your snacks, lock in. Let's go. Okay, so let's fix the episodes. We only have 4 episodes to work with. It's quite short, and for sake of argument, we're going to assume that I don't have to share any of the hour 15 or so runtime with any other plot lines. It's just Pollen. So some baseline things to establish, and this is going to like go into character motivations. So the season's mainly going to take place from Colin's point of view, as we need to see in real time, not only when the Ton falls for Penn, not only when Debling falls for Penn, but when Collins falls for Penn, okay? Colin is an academic. He's pretty smart, but he doesn't like being known for his intelligence. I think with the way that Anthony ran the family after his father's passing, it was a very traumatic time for everyone, and Colin and him seem like the sort that probably clashed a lot in their youth. So, or even if they didn't clash, I don't think Anthony was a amazing model or role model to the children, just because he is a workaholic and clearly has like a lot of pent up issues. So Colin saw that and he didn't want to be anything like his brother. And Anthony is incredibly intelligent and very book smart. And Anthony, who was also quite book smart, didn't want to resemble him at all. So he's very knowledgeable, he's very intelligent, but he doesn't want to be. So he tries to like step back from that and he doesn't want to acknowledge his own intellect. He's also very creative, but he's not as creative as Benedict. So that's another thing. Like he's kind of like the worst of both worlds. He's not as smart as Anthony, but he's not as creative as Benedict. So he's kind of just like mediocre in both aspects, which makes him feel worse and feeds more into kind of like his imposter syndrome problem. Um, he has imposter syndrome in this, and it has fucked with him for a very long time, and that's why he travels and changes up his identity every single summer when he goes to a different place. He's a character who very deeply wants authenticity and is unable to find it in himself, so he values it heavily in other people, but he's jaded and unable to see it in other people because he feels like, okay, well, if I can't be authentic to myself, why would anyone else be? And part of his arc is getting over that and finding authenticity not only in others but in himself. And like, you can't love anyone until you love yourself, whole debacle. I think that's kind of like it for the baseline, so let's just go ahead and start going into episodes. Episode 1. So episode 1 would be a long flashback starting from childhood. Let's say like Penny is like 10 and Colin is 13 or something to that effect. I don't know their age difference. And it would follow everything from when they were younger and first met to now, like the initial start of the season. Now, I don't know if I said it earlier in the video. I don't think I did, but I have not read the books. I will not be reading the books. I've tried and they weren't good, so I don't want to. I think I got through like maybe like 5 pages, and I was like, oh, this is like dog food. I'm not consuming this. This is horrible. So I won't be doing that. So sorry if someone is going to be like, oh, they actually proved they were very close as children in childhood. Da, 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 da. I don't care. I'm not reading that. So just thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so Colin and Penn spend time together as children. They're very, very close. It's very clear that they're close. I like the idea that Penn and Colin actually spend time together outside of Eloise at first. Like maybe the 3 of them hang out a lot just because they're kind of like similar in age range. And they spend time at the Bridgerton estate, and it just, oh, mom says we can only come inside and outside so many times. And I can't go back inside, and I have nothing to do, and none of my other friends are out, so let's play like the girls, right? Like that's kind of their dynamic. I assume that's how siblings work. It's important, since this is only going to be from Colin's point of view. Colin is going to have moments of looking at Penny and focusing on her and her features as a child. Like, I see the scene very clearly. Maybe they're in like the drawing room or something, and he's writing or, drawing, whatever you do in a drawing room, reading. And Penny walks in the room. She's like announced and walks in, and very polite little girl. And she hasn't noticed that Colin is there yet, and maybe like he can hear that Eloise is coming, but he doesn't like cognizantly realize that yet. And the camera's focusing on Penny, and it focuses on like the bows in her hair and the way she laughs at something, and on the way she almost trips on the carpet because she's coming in so quickly, and how her dress ruffles when she walks into the room, and the dimples on her cheeks, and he's just staring at her. But before he can really get enveloped by this image of this young girl and kind of like feel anything for her, Eloise walks in, and it completely like disrupts the entire scene. Eloise walks in, and everything refocuses, and it's not Penelope, it's Eloise and Penelope, and that kind of is the silent way to get things across to the viewer that, oh, see, she's getting lumped in with the sister, and this only continues throughout the rest of their life. Like, they're a package deal, so she's going in the sister category. She's not going in the woman category. Or I guess in this scenario it would be girl category, because she was just a girl. Okay, so time skip a few years later. Penelope continually has moments of connection with Colin. As he gets older, he gradually stops spending time with her as he's too focused on his own issues. Colin gets older, and he kind of tries to find himself and fails at every turn. Okay, women don't really flock to him that much. He's not particularly interesting. He's not particularly good at anything that is public or well known. He's just Colin. He's not the genius Bridgerton brother Anthony who became Viscount at a young age and took over for the family and keeps them from bankruptcy. And he's not the artistic, free-willed lover of the arts and all that is interesting and creative like Benedict. He is just Colin, and that is very sobering. And the older he gets, the more he struggles with it. So I'm not gonna do like a play-by-play of what I think would happen in this flashback episode, because this video is so long already. Like, this is gonna be a pretty long one, and I don't really know exactly what I'd want. I could sit down with it, but I don't think that I need to. You're getting the idea that it's like, just, we need to establish why they are friends in the first place. All that matters is that this is what they're like as children, give some background to why Penn might like him at all, and why he didn't think of her as a romantic prospect. And then it ends with current day Colin and Penn have never been more disconnected than they are right now. Colin is back in town, and Penelope comes to the realization that she needs to get out of her house. So when we find them at the end of the episode, it will be where we found them, like at the top of the other episode. I don't remember where it was for episode 1 in the actual show, but he's back. He's flirting with all these women. Penelope has seen him, and this would mirror the scene that I just mentioned earlier that I described of like him looking at her and noticing these things about her. It would be a mirror image of that, but now they're older, and unlike before when their eyes meet and Eloise takes Penelope away and puts her right back into the previously established category of sister and untouchables. Now Eloise is on his side. He is away from her. Penelope has never been alone and like her own thing before, and their eyes meet, and Penelope looks at him, and then she frowns, and then she leaves, and he doesn't really know what to do with that, because that's the first time Penelope has ever left him and not the other way around. So that's episode 1, and that's like setting the scene of like, oh, something's different, and he doesn't know what to do with that. Like, remember that childhood friend thing of used to the status quo. Well, the status quo is now gone, and now we need to make peace with that. Awesome. Okay. Episode 2. Okay, so episode 2. Penelope does her glow up and debuts in the Ton during one of the endless balls that they have every fucking day. And she gets very little fanfare after everyone has seen her. So that scene in the show stays. Like, honestly, that entire thing is great. She comes down, she's in like her dark green, she's sexy, she's like womanly, but a few guys try to come talk to her and nothing comes of it. Like, I really liked that. No notes. Let's keep that. Colin sees she's upset because eventually Penelope leaves. She's like discouraged and upset and just leaves the ball flat out. Colin sees that she is upset, and after going months without talking to her, wants to catch up. He's also worried about her, though he will not voice that. So she talks about how she wants a husband to Colin. Like, they're outside, it's dark. Um, I really want something. This is a note, but something I really want to play with in this season and in these 4 episodes is the fact that these two uh, young people of opposite sexes are constantly together alone. And that should not be allowed. But because it's Penn and because it's Colin and they're Penn and Colin and Colin and Penn, no one sees the big deal. And that's where the problems come from. So Colin goes after her and he's like, "Hey, Penn, like, what's going on? Like, you seem upset. I haven't seen you around the house since I got back. Like, what is this? Like, you don't respond to my letters anymore. What's going on?" Penn is still mad at him. She's still very upset. And she is just like, I did all this. I changed my outfit and I'm still, incompetent with social situations. And no one wants to talk to me. And I'm never going to find a husband like this. And Colin is confused. Like, you want to find a husband? Since when do you want a husband? And Penelope kind of like reels on him and blows up like, "I've always wanted a husband. I am a marriable, suitable woman in the town. Of course I want a husband. Who doesn't want a husband when you're my age?" And Colin, of course, kind of like, "Oh, don't shoot the messenger. My bad. Peace. Calm down." And she calms because she's like, "Okay, this isn't your fault. I'm sorry, Colin." And they go back to kind of talking with their adult voices and not yelling at each other. And Colin can see that she is very upset and she's very insistent about wanting a husband out of nowhere. He asks why she suddenly wants to get married. She does not tell him. That is an important detail. She does not tell him. She just kind of goes quiet. And for the rest of the show, up until like a certain episode where she reveals why, she'll just be like, "Well, I'm of marrying age. Like, I don't want to become a spinster. Please, please, please." So Colin offers to help her learn how to seduce a man. And she's apprehensive at first because she's still very mad at him. Like I said, she doesn't believe him. She's like, "Okay, well, what's the catch?" And he's like, "There is no catch. You're one of my closest friends. You've always been there for me. The least I can do is be there for you. I don't think that's a lot to ask for. And hey, who knows better about getting men to want you than a man?" And Penelope doesn't see a problem with that logic, so they begin the lessons. This is the official start to the lessons. So just a point of reference, Colin's advice is wholly unhelpful in bagging a man because he's never done it before, and Penny doesn't know that. So all his advice is actually incredibly tailored to himself, and he accidentally is the reason that she is able to seduce him because he basically gave her the play-by-play book on what to do to make Colin Bridgerton want you 100% of the time, and it worked like a charm. So in their courtship / learning how to seduce a man scenes, it's gonna go across many episodes. It's not just like a 1 episode thing, but the scenes vary. But at the start, there should be scenes of Colin trying to teach basic etiquette because he thinks less of Penny and he assumes she doesn't know these things just because like Portia is a mess and her sisters are a mess, and it's kind of like just presumed. And he's also a bit of a dickhead. But Penny very quickly gets annoyed, and she's still upset with him, so she gets annoyed a lot faster. She doesn't really have the patience with him that she used to, and that's going to show itself through multiple different episodes. And she insists that she knows all this. She knows what it's like to be a lady. She knows etiquette. She knows everything. She was raised to get married, okay? It's just that she's a social outcast. That's all she needs. So he doesn't need to hold her hand through these childish lectures on how to hold a plate or have correct posture or introduce yourself to a lord. She knows. Trust me. He apologizes because once again he's misstepped and he's presumed things about her and kind of like fallen back in line with the status quo of childhood and seeing her only as like the friend of his little sister who refuses to do things by the books. And he's seeing her for her own person. She's not unruly and difficult like Eloise was. She's not struggling to make it into the ton because she refuses to. She's just a little bit inept in a way that Eloise is purposefully while Penelope is accidentally. And that is a bit eye-opening because he's never really thought of that before. So now we will have the ball start. So another ball starts because there's like 50, there's so many fucking balls, man. So another dance starts a different night, maybe like a week into their training, and Colin instructs her to talk to Debling. So he's going to be the one to introduce them. The reason I'm changing this is I know that Penelope should have urgency, but I think that one, she doesn't need it because she's not that good at talking to people. So I like the idea that I know in the original Debling talks to her first, and that's kind of like how they're introduced to each other. But I think it is a little bit more insidious on Colin's end if he introduces Debling and now he has to live with what he did. But I am partial to the idea that Debling pursues her because Penny's never really been pursued before. So honestly, I'm not like gonna die on this hill. This isn't a cross I need to like die on or anything. Either version is good with me. Not that Shonda is gonna hire me, but if she does, I would love it. Please hire me, Shonda. I'd love to work under you. Okay, so he is uncomfortable seeing Penn talk to the man, talk to Lord Debling, but shakes it off. It's not a big deal. He doesn't understand what this feeling is yet. He just thinks that's like, oh, I'm uncomfortable because what if she fails? He assumes she's going to mess up, and she doesn't. And that's kind of like the beginning of the end for him. Now, remember, this guy has more acclaim than the Bridgertons, right? When he introduces him to Penny, this is not something Penny knows, but he's doing this because he doesn't think that Penny's going to be able to score with Debling. He's doing this because he wants her to get comfortable with rejection, or he wants her to get comfortable with just talking to any man. It doesn't have to be a man that's actually in her league, just anyone. And Debling, while rich and famous and well off in a different country, is very off-putting and weird and very eccentric in his love of nature and veganism or vegetarianism or whatever denomination of food he is. So he's expecting this to fail. So the fact that it worked is a good thing, but it feels off. And like I said, he has no words for that yet. So whatever. It's probably not a big deal. Probably doesn't even mean anything. Episode 3 and 4. So, episode 3. Penelope spends all of her point of view screen time with Debling as before. Same general convo, but this new status is put into account, so things are going really well. So in between her dates with Debling, she's going and doing lessons with Colin. She's doing both at the same time. This is obviously the contrast to see both guys and what they're offering her. Colin is the more familiar. They're having sweet moments where they're like learning from each other and going out on functionally dates every single day, multiple times a day. And then Debling is like the real moment where it's more stuffy, but there's a comfort there that is different from what she has with Colin. So her and Colin are getting closer. They're getting more physical. She reads some of his writing accidentally, same as in the show. He blows up. She apologizes. And they both talk about their crafts. She doesn't come out and say that she writes, but he notices her hands just like in the show. So that scene kind of goes unchanged. But instead of him blowing up and like freaking the fuck out because he was writing about like porn or whatever he was doing, it's just like a notebook of him ruminating about the things he saw when he was traveling. And they start talking about travels and like their dreams to leave this place, right? They both have grander ideas of what life could be, and they both love the idea of traveling. So this would be a long scene where they're sitting on the floor together and their shoulders are touching, and Colin is explaining like the beautiful waters of Geneva or the Eiffel Tower. Actually, I don't know if it's there when this is being written. Well, he's talking about something that's in France, and they're just laughing together, and it's kind of sad. It's kind of like wistful at the fact that they find this kind of disability to be free with each other only after they've argued and they're sitting in the quiet of kind of like the fractured moment. And Penn is like, I'd give anything to leave this place. She's so ready to leave. And Colin, for the first time, really hears her. And he would say something along the lines of, I don't know if this place would be home without you here. And she doesn't really know what to do with that. Like, it's a very touching moment, but she's uncomfortable because this is Colin, and Colin does not talk to her like that. And she has long since given up on him now because he's a rake and way too promiscuous for her, and she has to focus on Debling. So that's when she retracts herself from the scene, and she's like, okay, well, Well, thank you for letting me read, and I'm sorry for going through your stuff. And then she leaves. So it kind of leaves it abruptly, and Colin is missing the scent of her and how she felt by his side when they were talking. And he thinks like this is the most authentic thing he's had in a very long time, just sitting on the floor talking with a woman. So after they have their moment in the study where she finds her things, Penn goes to another ball. So Debling takes something that Penn says incorrectly, and she's doing this in an effort to seduce him, and she forgets herself and she steps out of line a bit and offends. And he takes it incorrectly, and she is convinced the courtship is over. Maybe he's like, oh, okay, well, I don't know if I'd want to be with a woman that does whatever, whatever, whatever. Or if I'm so uncomfortable to you, then, don't even worry about it. And it's totally off foot. Like, she feels like the world is ending. He doesn't want to talk to her anymore. He says, this is enough. He doesn't say, oh, let us stop talking to each other. Let's stop courting each other. He doesn't say that. But her mind catastrophizes. So she assumes that this is like the end and she's fucked up irreversibly. So she leaves. She's inconsolable. Her one chance is gone. She goes to Colin in tears, and she's so upset. And Colin's like, what happened? And she explains, and Colin is saying, well, it doesn't even matter if they failed. We will find you someone else. He is an idiot. He's a fool. He is brainless if he can't see what you have to offer. And she begs him to kiss her. And this is kind of the same scene as before as well. There's no need to really change anything. I mean, I would change things if I was writing it fully, but I'm not. So for now, we'll just say blanket statement. Keep that. She doesn't want to die without knowing the feeling of a man holding her, and she's convinced like she's fucked. Like there's no man's ever gonna want her. So Colin does it just like he did before. It gets serious. They kiss more than they need to for just like a brief touch of lips. And Colin has officially stepped past the point of no return. He's attracted to Penn. But he won't marry her. He thinks he lusts for her. He thinks this is sex and nothing more. It's not love. He could never love Penelope Featherington. He could never marry Penelope Featherington. And he's convinced of that because he is an idiot. And he's desperately holding on to this new persona of his, and he can't look at what the truth would be because the truth is scary. That he could be ostracized for finding Penelope attractive. So he won't try to marry her in this version, not this early. Instead, he insists that she give up on Debling and move on. Go for a different man. Go for someone less important. He's too haughty. He doesn't know anything about the Ton. Leave him alone. But Penny refuses. She's too close to the finish line. She must get this man to marry her. She will grovel at his feet if she has to. She needs to get out of this place, She brings up their previous conversation. Something, you may have a home here, but I promise you I do not. Like, it is nothing but four walls and a ceiling to me, like something to that effect. And she is so gung-ho about it. She's so serious that Colin can't help but agree and decides to help her more than ever in her efforts. So things have gotten serious. So now they're really starting to pick up. Okay, episode 4. Okay, so I just want to preemptively say this. I might lose some people here, and that's fine. But I think Colin and Penny should be allowed to be bad people on occasion. Penn has Whistledown. Colin needs his moment. Okay? Had a minor distraction, so we're just going to start over. So, episode 4. Now, I might lose people here, and that's fine. I get it. I understand we all want our Blorbos to be happy and good people, but I don't. And I think Colin and Penny should be allowed their moment to be bad people on occasion. Penny gets her entire thing with Whistledown, which apparently ruins lives. So it's only fair that she ends up with someone who has a bit of dirt under his nails. And now Colin needs his moment to get dirty. So he's going to insist on teaching her not only about seduction of the heart, but seduction of the body. Things get physical, okay? He's teaching her how to hold hands and how to touch a man's arm and keep him engaged. Little touches here and there, grab his chin, how he'll touch her, and they're just moving faster and faster, and it's small things, but it's contact, and that's enough, right? Like he needs it at this point. Penn is actively disengaging and is using every single trip she knows on Debling, right? So Colin's work is being put to the test constantly. It's working, right? It is working. Now, admittedly, Debling and her makeup, she thinks it's because of the work Colin is doing. It has nothing to do with the work. It's just kind of a coincidence. So she sees it as, oh my gosh, Colin is right. I did need to get physical. He is a genius. I need to apologize for everything I've said to him. He was not trying to mess with me. He was being honest. So something happens. I don't know what for sure. Probably they've just been practicing well into the night. And they have a moment together where they talk about their dreams and aspirations. And Penny sort of bears her soul about what she's afraid of if this doesn't work and what she's afraid of if it does. She can hardly talk to the man, let alone pleasure one. She doesn't even know what that entails to pleasure a man, and she's terrified, right? She's under this impression that if she even makes one misstep, one, then any possible marriage will come crumbling down. And until she has the ring on her finger, and even after that, if we're going to be honest, but until she has that guarantee that he cannot just leave her, she is terrified, like absolutely petrified. Frankly, until she has a child, like she's with child, she's terrified, and she doesn't even know what to do with herself. And she shares this with Colin. And Colin gets an idea, a bad one, but he gets an idea, and he offers to teach her. He offers to teach her how to pleasure a man. It'll be their secret, and no one has to know about it. So they do it, fucking obviously. And let me tell you guys, it is amazing. It's better than amazing. And Colin revels in the fact no one else will ever see her like this or know her in such a state before him. Because for the first time ever, Colin has something all to his own, and he is officially unable to let go of it. He has capitalized on not only her body, but on her heart unknowingly. And he is just reveling in the feeling that it's his. And no one else will be able to take that. Like he, even if she never speaks to him again, even if Debling whisks her away to some other country, which I'm sure he wouldn't be upset about. I say that in quotations because he would fucking kill himself. He is just like, oh, I did this. And it feels kind of like marking your territory, you know? And when I say that they did something, the sex is not penetrative because, well, it could be. If we really want to make it super slimy, it could be. But this is Bridgerton, and I feel like in Bridgerton, and especially this time period, and because it's made for women primarily, everything has to be from the point of view of pleasuring the woman above all else. So he probably just like eats her out for a long time, and then that's it. And he's like, look, you learned how to pleasure a man, even though no men were pleasured in the process. But digressing, so he says as much after the fact when they're done about the whole, you know, ownership thing and how he was the first to get it. Penny talks continually about Debling and what he may think about her skills and, you know, asking Colin, like, what'd you think? Like, did I do good? Did I do bad? Do you think he'd like it? Do you think da-da-da-da? And she's just constantly asking about him because she's still focused on him. And Colin, who is now horribly sober after the realization that she did this just for that man and not for him, and she was not in the moment with him, is losing it. The woman he's lusting after, he's in love with her. The woman he's lusting after, speaking another man's name in bed, oh, he lashes out horribly. And he says, Debling will never marry a compromised woman. Why would he want damaged goods? Who would want to order food that has been opened by another man? Exactly. Oh, Colin is unable to leave the sexy playboy attitude behind and insists on it till the very end. Even as his heart breaks seeing Penelope realize what they've done, she cries, slaps him, and runs. She feels used and horribly stupid for allowing another Bridgerton in. So now we have conflict to end the season on. We have the fight that is giving them a reason to have to get back together. We have Colin having to prove himself to her because he's yet to do that. We have Penelope now out to people and feeling like not only does she have this secret of Whistledown, but she has this secret of, oh my God, I'm compromised. Like, I'm damaged goods, he said. How am I ever going to get out of my house now? And that would be the end of part one, season 3. Okay. So a few things. Whistledown is still kind of untouched. Like it would kind of be what it's already doing. There's not really anything to change there. I think the way they did it is fine. Again, if I did like a complete like breakdown and rewrite, I could like totally rewrite Whistledown, but I don't really want to. Next point, I won't explain how things get fixed between them, but it leaves things off on a cliffhanger and allows for forward movement. So that's why if you're like, no, I need to hear more, well, I mean, sorry. When the season drops in, at the time of writing this, like 2 days, I will be sure to, if I don't find it satisfying, which I most likely won't at this rate, I'll be sure to continue my ideas and kind of compare it to the original script. But we'll see, we'll see, we'll see. So yeah, that is my general rewrite of Bridgerton season 3. I did not go that much in depth because this video is already very, very long, and I don't want to make 3 hours worth of content because I could just talk forever, and I talk a lot. So we won't be doing that. It was a pleasure to talk about it. I hope you all enjoyed. If you think this rewrite was bad, comment that, and then also send me money, and I'll stop making them. If you think this was good, comment that, and then you can also send me money, and I'll keep making them. If you thought it was nothing and you are indifferent, comment that, and send me money, and I'll do them quieter. Okay, well, good luck, everyone. I'm very, very excited to see the next season. The next part of Bridgerton season 3. I will be recording my thoughts on them and then posting them once I've watched it all. And I hope you enjoyed this. Okay, bye-bye. Love you. Bye.